Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 4 of the Asym tutorial series. Now, quick warning before I start, episode 5 is probably not going to be out for quite a while because I'm going away for a week, so sorry about that. But apart from that, today we are going to be actually making our first ability and some nice UI for abilities, so you know we can actually see cooldowns and what's going on. Last episode we did a lot of work on just making the killer seem good, and now I'd like to basically finish off a killer as a proof of concept of the ability system actually being quite powerful before we move on to anything else. And this way we also have a killer which we can then like learn how to balance and so on. I think we can kind of get straight onto it. So this ability is going to be like, if you play Forsaken, it's going to be like Gashing Wound. What we're going to do instead though, just to showcase a bit more of our system we've made, you're going to be able to hold down the ability to charge it up to shoot more spikes out. So you deal anywhere from like 50 to 110 damage, depending on if you hold it for 0.2 seconds or 1.5 seconds. We can customize it later, but that's kind of the idea. Anyway, let's begin. Okay, so here we are in studio, and what I want to do first is disable that because that is annoying. First thing we're going to want to do is, before we actually start working on the ability, we want to make a couple modules which we can reuse later. So in terms of our two new modules, we're going to have Ragdoll and Hitbox. Not Hitbox, Knockback. And we'll start with our Knockback scripts because it's the shorter of the two, and the Ragdoll's quite lengthy. But once we have it done, that's basically ready for the rest of the game. Okay, cool. That's the knockback script done. Not too long. It's kind of just a pretty robust way of applying some force. So it should be, I mean, apart from edge cases, but I'm not going to bother handling them till quite a bit later. I also don't think I had to use this in the end. No, I actually didn't. Okay, Ragdoll. Yeah, this series, or not this series, but this episode in particular is going to be quite a bit of coding. The gashing wound ability that we're going to be doing does actually have quite a lot of code. That's because we're showcasing, though, a lot of different features, like charging up, 2-player animations, all that kind of stuff. Now it's time for the Ragdoll script. And then after that we can continue to some of the more relevant stuff for today.
You are an idiot!
And there we have it, the entire Ragdoll module. That was quite a lengthy one, but that should be good for basically the rest of the development process. I don't see why not, as of now. Return true. Okay, there we go. That took quite a while. But that they are two very, very helpful modules which we've fully completed now, which is very good. So then we're going to want to actually start on our module of our new ability. So here, my new ability is going to be called Skewer, because we are quite literally just, you know, putting a spike straight through their torso. So Skewer sounds about right. Skewering them. But again, name it whatever you want, it doesn't matter. Just make sure you, you know, replace your names with the correct names. Like if I use Skewer, you need to use whatever your one is. This is like a pretty damn long script, so this is probably going to be a fair bit of the video. But let's begin in anyway. As you can see, there are quite a few things we have to do. Again, a couple of them you may not need. For example, spike count if you're doing a different ability. But personally, I'm just going to do this. And don't worry if this isn't like the ability you want, because I'm going to do so many abilities, and even after we finish the entire game, I'm just going to take viewer requests, like, I don't know, parkour system, a specific type of ability. Like someone had said something about a rage mechanic, like of course we can do that, and so on. Like it's mostly just up to you guys what abilities you want to see me, you know, explain. And I'll do as many as I can basically. Anyway, let's start just by doing all the services. before we do constants, we're going to need to do all our functions, because I think there's going to be quite a few. And depending on which functions we have, we're going to need different constants. However, I also missed out a category, remotes, because we're going to need them for our ability UI. Skewer. Okay, that's all our functions, or at least the ones I need. And then there's a couple which, if you're not doing spikes, you might not need, like create spike or spike sequence and so on. But I'm just going to be doing my demonstration of this specific ability for now. And yeah, I'm going to warn you, it goes over 1,000 lines. let's do our constants now. In fact, no, let's do our remote. Go over to remotes, add a new one. Ability UI. We'll be utilizing that later for our ability UI. Wow, would never have guessed. Constants, okay, we've got cooldown, obviously. Min charge time. The reason we're doing actual text here and just an ID here is because we haven't actually made the survivor class, and that will be something for future. And once we do that, we'll be able to have our functions to play animations for survivors. But for now, there's no survivors, like survivor class, so we're just going to have manually an animation ID that will load, and then we'll come back to this script and fix the manual loading later, which is why it's all in one separate function. But then these two are just, we'll put them into config later. But that we'll just call them that, because like it doesn't matter. We know what they should be called. In fact, we're going to need one more. UI. Hello. Joseph went out to meet his friends. I'm not sure where, but yeah. a spike mesh here. But honestly, you can just use whatever. I basically just got a cylinder and then, you know, put some cones on the end to get that kind of shape on either side. And that's basically all I did. But yeah, you make that probably like 24. Yeah, that looks about right. my goodness. Okay. Finally done. Okay, let's go into the killer config. Oh, sorry, into abilities. And then we can do... And then we're going to Q. And make it equal to whatever you named your module. So mine's Skewer. So I'm going to write Skewer. So for my animations, I created a charge, which just goes, he basically just moves his sword up, and it's exactly 1.5 seconds long. So the minimum is going to be 0.2, so like about there, but it doesn't really matter, it's not for long anyway. But then, so that's as long as you can go. Ideally, if you're like punishing a stun, you'd probably be up to like here, maybe? I don't know. But anyway, yeah, so then that's the full charge. So he kind of just puts his sword into backhand and then gets ready to slash. Very cool. His actual attack is, he will, I'll play it first and then I'll break it down. So there's, so basically what he does, he first of all spins around and slaps them, basically dazing them. And then with his sword at that point, he's now, or here he like slashes, here he kind of like slashes them a bit, like slashes their gut so they keel over. And then he hits their head as they bend over. And then here he then slashes forward and then stops his sword midway. And then here, this is when the spikes come out. And then he basically impales them as he turns with the spikes from his torso, which we've coded. And then he kind of just spins his sword back into ready to slash, just ready to go back to normal here. So I mean, overall I think it's a very cool animation. Wow, whoa. I like here how he has the epic action pose. But anyway, and then here you won't really be able to understand what's going on, but this is the victim. So you can see this is actually the exact same humanoid root part position as like the attack. See the grey box there, it doesn't actually change. Basically that's why we can set it to the same thing, because this is a 2-player animation. So in this animation, basically this is where they get slashed in the gut here, and then they go slashed like across here, that's where they're holding it, and then they get absolutely like walloped in the head there, go round, spin round, try to walk away, I guess, from the situation, and then yeah, and then this is where the ragdoll starts. They yeah, they get slightly cooked, and this is where they start ragdolling and like impaled, yeah. And it gets manually paused, so it doesn't really matter that it goes on for a while. But yeah, so that's they're the 2 animations. I will be making a Blender tutorial, so I'll be making a tutorial on 2-player animations soon. So for now, it's fine if like it doesn't look quite right, because I'll show you how to do them in a later episode. Not too long away, not too long away. But anyway, they're the 2 animations which I'm gonna put into. So they're the 2 animations I'm gonna put in there. First thing we can edit is the character class. First thing we're gonna update is the ability input. So there's a couple extra things we're gonna need now. I'm kind of just gonna time lapse the changes here because they're all pretty self-explanatory. update some of the ability manager stuff as well. Just so now we have multiple abilities, we don't want them using like slash during the skewer animation. So we're going to make sure that only one is played at a time. We're going to create the set movement locked function. Ability base we're going to create start because I forgot to add that. Now with all those changes and kind of small error fixes, ideally this should work. The first one's going to be a bit janky, just because the ragdoll had to set up, which we should be able to fix, so that obviously doesn't happen when we're actually playing. But yeah, the other ones are good. And max charge, well, it doesn't actually throw them all the way. So yeah, holding Q does all that, and then letting go of Q midway through will mean like you have less spikes. So it's a minimum of 3 and then a maximum of like 11, I think. or 10, not sure. But yeah, so as you can see, it works quite well and does basically what we want it to. And then if it's only half done, it like slightly releases them or knocks them. Wait, no, it doesn't knock them back, but will basically the reaction, the knockback force just isn't big enough yet, but we can change it. But yeah, I think the ability looks quite good. Yeah, you can't walk during the, like if I try to run and then, well here, let's say I'm running here and then I can't do anything. But also what you can see is even though I'm trying to run, this keeps going down anyway, and we don't want that. So that's also something we're going to fix this episode, because as someone suggested, like if I'm holding down the sprint key, why am I draining stamina? I'm literally not moving. It just doesn't make very much logical sense. But what I am going to do is make it so if you're holding the sprint key, you won't regenerate, but you won't lose any, so it'll just be frozen. Because if you're holding down the sprint key, it means you're getting ready to like run off. Also ignore that we haven't added the remote events yet. But yeah, so then you go all the way up. So I guess the idea would be that's to catch up, and then the other version is if someone's just tried to stun you or something and they've missed, then now you can hold, and while they're in their end lag, you can charge it up, so then you can do really high damage afterwards. Boom. Yeah, we can make the VFX better later, but I kind of just want the actual abilities to work first. Like sound effects we can do, and I don't know, particles, stuff like that. But I kind of just want to have this work for now, or like the actual functional part, and then we can come back and make it cool later. I'd say this is still pretty cool though. Definitely stuff like making the spikes not just disappear, that looks kind of bad. Now I guess we're gonna go on to fixing our sprinting, where we do that, and then also I think that in turn is gonna fix the bug where we're able to sprint like midway through the ability, because that should definitely not be happening. So let's get to work on them. As you can see now, I'm pressing down the key and I can go forward, but if I let go of the key, I'm not moving, but I also don't regenerate. So that's the kind of perfect trade-off, and then if I let go, then it starts to regen. I'll put the mic even closer to the keyboard for now, just to show you. So I've got, if we're going this way, then we've got W, and then Control. And then I let go of W, nothing happens. But if I let go of Control, now it regenerates. So yeah, that's good. But obviously now we'll need to make these changes on the server side because the server doesn't really know that we're not sprinting. Yeah, see, the server kind of forces us into a walking position before. Like here, I'm not sprinting, or I'm not. Okay, then the server kind of just breaks down. That's great. Okay, but yeah, we need to fix that. Again, sprinting will be fully client-side, just with server anti-cheat later on. But for now, while we have zero latency between the server and the client, it's just a lot easier to maintain it on the server. But obviously, once we get into ping issues, that's when we'll start migrating to client, like fully. Okay, so that should hopefully prevent the server from letting me change my walk speed, which should mean that I can't move during the kill. So I go but, okay, never mind. So I go but, yeah, and I can't move. Now I can. There we go. Okay, yep. And I also can't move during this or this animation. Okay, that's an issue. That's also a very big issue. You shouldn't be able to manipulate the direction of the spikes. That's kind of just shooting the... And oh wait, and also, yeah, let's test that. Yeah, you can't... Okay, never mind, I guess you can. That's still an issue. Oh, because we didn't do it for slash yet, okay. So yeah, we need to make slash do it, otherwise, yeah, otherwise you can kind of just... You can kind of just tap them. It's very goofy. You can, yeah, you can just give them a tap. Okay, let's add the validation for slash then. I can do that, but then while I'm doing that I also can't attack, and if I go into the ability I also shouldn't be able to attack until after it's done. There we go. You can see holding the ability doesn't work, still doesn't work, and then it works after I've done that. And then we've also fixed our movement problem and our sprinting works. Okay, the server's still being a bit stupid. Let's fix that then. Bruh. Less than or equal to 0, not less than 0. There we go. That works. You can see we can regenerate stamina during the thing. Awesome. Okay. Ooh, is that all needed for today? No, we need to do our UI as well now. So the UI, it seems a lot of people had trouble just with the time lapse. I also haven't designed it to be anything nice looking because I really don't know how I actually want it to look yet. So right now it's just super ugly, but that's fine. I don't really care yet. In fact, this frame was like, I'd say pretty over the top considering it was literally the first frame I did. So like I'll try to just UI aspect ratio constraint 4.57. Okay, there we go. Then we're going to want a UI grid layout. Actually, we'll keep the 5 pixels either side. Okay, cell size is going to be like now we're going to want our abilities. So let's make this like 0.8 for now, just so we can see what we're doing. Gonna have our 1. Yep. We're just gonna call this ability 1. Cooldown. Never mind. Image label. Cooldown. Delete. Just put whatever as your ability icon. Haven't really done any of them yet, so our cooldown's going to have Z index 2. It's going to have Z index 1, so it's behind. That doesn't have a background, does it? No, it doesn't. Okay, good. Icon. Wait, so what's it? What looks like the background? Oh, is it ability 1? Hopefully. Okay, there we go. Yeah, doesn't really work, does it? Sure. And then we can do our text label know, just a number. The scaled UI stroke, and make the UI stroke 3. Yeah, seems good enough. Cooldown label, or cooldown text, probably better. And we can do the same thing, drag it into the corner, make it smaller. That size I'm gonna have. Just name it M1 or whatever you want the keybind to be. Okay. And then there we go, so we have 4 of them. Now I'm going to make the M1 a bit closer into the middle. I also forgot to name this keybind. Now it should be a bit more obvious which one's which. There we go. Grid layout, I'm also going to make that right. Ability background could just be fully off now. Yeah, that's good enough. I don't really think it matters. I'm also, however, I'm going to name these after our slots. So we've got QER and obviously the M1. So now what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to take our events, which you saw were kind of overflowing, and we're going to want to add our ability UI controller. Ability UI controller. Now I don't think this script will be very long. So hopefully it's a nice break from the crazy large ones we've just been having. Normally something like that where I was talking quite slow, I would just time lapse, but a lot of people are having trouble with the UI designing on the previous, I think, episode 2. So I think I'll just keep that in, like, fully. And you can just skip ahead if you want. For this part, I will probably time lapse. We're also going to make our charge bar canvas group. This is just going to be that's going to be our bar to show how much we've charged up our ability. Image label, not charge bar. Charge bar goes here. I'm going to take the same texture as this. In fact, I'm just going to copy that. There we go. gradient. Just guess we can go from like grey to white. I don't know. Oh, I meant to put that in here. There we go. Transparency we can maybe turn up a tiny bit, and then turn it the other way. In fact, I don't like that. Let's do some more fun colours. Let's do like a red and then a bright red like that. Because why not? Oops. Yeah. More deadly looking, I guess. And charge label, I'm literally just going to steal our text label we already made here. Put it in there. Charge label. Size is 1. And then I guess we'll change that to whatever. We'll just put that as nothing for now. It's going to be our active bar. And we can just do invisible for now. Okay, nice. Just thought I'd get that out of the way now. That way we can just put it in our GUI altogether. Okay, ability UI controller should be done, and then let's go through and fix all these keybinds. Q, E, R. Again, T is very easy to add if you want a fifth ability. You just, duplicate another one on the end. For subject 0, there's only going to be 4. We're going to have like a scream, and then we're going to have a hunt, kind of like detection. Basically, we're just trying to cover all bases with this killer, like cover all bases of systems we'll need to add. Basically just, making all our killer systems while, building a tangible product of said systems. Then what we're going to want to do is we're just going to want to get the slash ability to also fire a cooldown. Update UI state equals cooldown. Okay, I thought we already made it. I guess not. How have I not got that either? There we go, okay. E and R don't do anything yet. However, M1 will trigger the cooldown, and Q will also trigger the cooldown. And as you, I think, did just see, we now have our charge bar. Bang. So we can see if we do it quickly, okay, ignore that. If we do it quickly, we get, what, 4 spikes, what's that? But then if we do it all the way up to the top, it kills them. I think these guys have 50 HP. Well, they might have 100. If it's 100, it might need to be nerfed a bit, because that's a bit OP. And when I say a bit, I mean way too OP. And one of the points of this is balancing. One of the points of this tutorial. So I guess we can fix it in a balancing episode. But proof of concept still stands. I can't move, I can't use any other abilities while I'm doing said ability. So although it felt like we spent a long time just coding one ability, we actually coded a lot of stuff. We made our Ragdolls, which we're going to have for the future. We made our knockback system, which is, we've applied a really weak knockback here, but we can make it stronger. We've done our ability UI, we've done charging bar. This can be reused for literally any ability now. We've done our ability UI here with cooldowns. Obviously we can animate them later, but that doesn't really matter for now. They work, that's the main thing. Stamina works now properly, like if you stop, you don't drain anything. And if you let go fully of the key, you'll start regenerating. So overall, I'd say we've done very, very well today. This is almost 4 hours of recording, but I'm sure it'll be less in the actual episode because you guys have got time lapses and stuff. I had to do all that myself, plus design it first. But either way, I will see you in episode 5. And that's gonna take quite a while, so you're gonna miss out probably on like 3 or 4 episodes because unfortunately I will be away. Anyway, that's all for now. Thank you very much for 5,000 subscribers. Recently I just hit that, and I'll see you later.